And also, ladies and gentlemen, आप लोगों के लिए बहुत जरूरी है, and I'll say this in Urdu because of the passion I have for CPEC. We were amongst all the countries in BRI, and in terms of our implementation of CPEC, we were the most responsible state. And sometimes we are overcritical on what we say about ourselves and how we are taking this. Why we were responsible? Because in all the energy projects that we implemented in CPEC, the wind and solar projects were the first to happen. The initial investment flow happened in Sindh and in a remote area where these energy projects were coming, and then the flow went to thermal, to coal-based, to hydel projects. And I'm so happy to what I heard from our colleague earlier on the energy basket. And again, please remember, any cent that you spend on bringing in new energy, new technology, will have its reflection in future, will have its reflection on the security, because this is a reflection on the energy security of Pakistan. The more indigenous sources, the more indigenous resources that we use, the security of Pakistan will be more secure and stable. So I will end on this and would also suggest that all points here, and I would also request my colleagues from media to take some relevant positive points from here and do reflect them on our discussion and discourse that we have on CPEC. I'm also happy to see the news report today about China being again very kind and giving us a rollover of $700 million US, and I think that would help us plan better on the challenges, economic challenges we have. But economy, environment, security, they are same. Just the wording is different. The impact, the devastation, and the positivity that it can bring are all same. So we will have this discussion, and I hope that as a result of all this, we will have some investment coming from Chinese on our SEZs. Thank you. Ma'am, with your permission, can I request my friend and colleague, Mr. Wang Kwekwa, to start the discussion and highlight? Okay. So we will first request Sir Zubairi, who is the special advisor for China Three Gorges South Asia Investment Limited, to give us his presentation and also tell us the challenges that you have seen. Thank you.
Let me first of all congratulate PCI and SDPI for arranging this important event and to discuss the need to basically for a green power, for a greener CPEC. Honorable Madam Senator, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a great honor for me to be here and to give a presentation on the prospects of PV manufacturing in Pakistan under special economic zones of the CPEC, and what lessons we have learned from China. Now, I will be making a presentation which will cover, I will basically start from the renewable energy sources in Pakistan. I will particularly highlight the solar energy resources. I will talk about the benefits and the advantages of the solar energy. I will tell you the efforts which government of Pakistan has made to basically induct renewable energy projects in Pakistan, and particularly solar energy projects in Pakistan. I will touch upon the GOP policies to encourage solar power projects. I will be touching on IGSAP and the GOP initiative on solar power projects. I will discuss the solar power technologies and its application. I will also throw some light on my special economic zones which has been established in Pakistan. I will talk about the opportunities to the manufacturers of the solar panels in special economic zones. Now, Now, renewable energy resources are the resources which are replenishable. These are the resources which generate clean and green energy. God has blessed Pakistan with plenty of energy, renewable energy resources. These are sunlight, water, wind, biomass, waves, tides, geothermal. Now, let me talk on the quantum. You know, wind power, estimated according to the estimates, the 346,000 megawatts of the power can be generated through wind power. For solar, around 2.9 million megawatts can be generated with this resource. Hydro, there is a resource of 60,000 megawatts. For biomass, there is a resource of 1,800 megawatts. For third coal, everybody knows this resource quantum is 175 billion tons, and about more than 100,000 megawatts of projects can be developed here. So it is a great blessing of mighty Allah that it has given tremendous indigenous resources to Pakistan. Now, sun, if you see that in 1 year, sun generates 23,000 terawatt. And in hydro, there is a big number. Again, all these numbers are quite big. For world total energy consumption, you see is only 2.6 tetrawatt. So whole world consumption can be made from the solar energy. This is the greatest blessing of Allah. And these are the resources also which I have shown. Now, the solar, there is a high importance of the renewable energy nowadays because number one, there is a desire to avoid irreversible climate change due to the advancement in the technology. The rates have been reduced, the cost has been reduced. There's increasing fuel prices around the world due to the Ukraine and Russian war. So it is good replacement of the oil-based projects, unreliable, non-renewable energy resources. You have seen how unreliable these fossil fuels are and what is the cost of fossil fuel at this point in time in international market. There is always support of the governments in developing the projects on renewable energy. Another advantage, benefit of the solar energy or renewable energy project, the gestation period is very small. A solar project can be developed in a period of 2 to 3 years, whereas hydro takes 7 to 10 years, thermal takes 3 to 5 years. The other thing is that it is environmental friendly renewable energy projects it relieves grid resources. There's energy security, rich off-grid extension. There's a tremendous amount of benefits. I'll not go into the details due to the limited time. Now, the advantages are renewable energy is basically environmental friendly, low greenhouse gases emission, less maintenance facility, stable energy prices, renewable energy resources, low cost operations. Renewable energy is a reliable source of energy now. So there's a continuous source of energy. Now, there are certain barriers for the accelerated development of solar power projects. What are these barriers? Number one, late start. No baseline data was available. Where the solar energy is in Pakistan about 5 years back, nobody knew. There is a perception that renewable energy is a very expensive, lack of understanding, resistance to the change. Everybody is addicted to thermal projects and hydro projects. Nobody accepts these renewable energy projects. You see in public sector, even in Pakistan, there is not a single renewable energy project which has been developed. So far, this initiative has been taken only by private sector. Focus on grid power alone. There is a lot many other things. I will not talk about it because it is a long list. Now, reasons for the development of solar projects. There are many good reasons for the development of solar power projects. Main is that natural is blessed with the enormous renewable energy potential, which needs to be utilized, which needs to be harnessed to meet the energy needs of the country. Ongoing technology advancement of solar PV technology and declining in its price over the past decades. The prices are reducing due to the technology. Solar PV energy promises a higher proportion of the national energy supply mix. There is evident from the reduction in the tariff of the solar power projects in Pakistan. Solar PV energy generation is the last option which should be exercised. Now, ADB, with the support of the World Bank, has developed a solar energy map of Pakistan. This is a solar energy map. If you see the location of Pakistan is ideal. It is located 24 basically degrees and 37 degrees to the north of latitude and 67 degrees and 75 degrees to the east latitude, longitude. So it is ideal where the solar radiation is maximum. Solar radiation is, if you see in the map, there is a tremendous solar radiations in the south and southwest. Now, government of Pakistan has made tremendous efforts to encourage companies to develop solar power projects. First is that solar map has been produced, which identifies the location where the solar projects should be located. Government of Pakistan has announced various policies to encourage private sector to develop solar power projects. A dedicated institution, AEDB, has been created to basically provide one window facility to private sector for the development of the private power projects. And the standard security package has been developed, which includes implementation agreement, energy purchase agreement, and the land lease agreement. So the investors, lenders, sponsors, everybody know what is the risk matrix, to what extent they will have to bear the risk. And GOP has provided the guarantee default for the sale of the power to the for purchasing the renewable energy. These are the key policies which government of Pakistan has announced. First is the basically national energy electricity policy. It is an overall policy. It gives the framework for other policies. Then there are two renewable policies which have been announced in the country up till now. First is the renewable energy policy 2006, and then there is a policy of 2019. Now, this policy clearly delineates the incentive and concessions which have been provided. So every investor could look into it. For example, GOP provides protection against political force majeure, change in law, change in duties and taxes. There is absolutely no corporate income tax on the companies who are developing this solar power projects. Repatriation of equity along the dividends is freely allowed. Convertibility of Pakistan rupee and dollar is guaranteed. Mandatory purchase of the power, because here there is only one purchaser, which is CPPG. So government, it is mandatory for the power purchaser to purchase power from the company which is generating renewable. There is no other business in Pakistan where government has provided guarantee. Government has provided the guarantee for the payment obligations of the power purchaser and the provinces. All renewable energy projects has to follow all environmental guidelines of the government of Pakistan and the lenders. So although these are environmental friendly, but still they are required to follow these guidelines. This is a structured, as you know, this financing is based on non-recourse financing. A lot of legal agreements has to be entered into. This is IPP has to enter into an agreement with AEDB, then the CPPA power purchase agreement has to be entered with the lenders, and agreement has to be entered with NEPRA, or tariff has to be determined by the NEPRA. So it is a very complex legal structure, and all these IPPs, I will say, the companies who are developing the projects on the solar-based projects has to follow this robust legal structure, which has a good track record in Pakistan. And this, now let's see where we are on this, on renewable energy. Why I'm focusing on the renewable energy, because I am trying to establish the need of these solar panels. That is the main thing behind that. Now, the projects which are in operation is 430 megawatts. Projects which are under construction is 250 megawatts. Projects which are being committed under IGSAP is 231 megawatts. Provinces are also keen to develop projects, solar power projects, and many or nearly all the provinces has done a remarkable job. Government of Sindh is handling 24 projects with a capacity of 1250 megawatts. Punjab 11 projects with 9760 megawatts. KPK with 5 projects with 249 megawatts, and Balochistan they are handling 3 projects of 650 megawatts. Now, very recently you have seen and you have heard in the press that the NEPRA has approved the indicative generation capacity expansion program 2022-30. This expansion program has been approved by the regulator. It gives the basically least cost generation plan for Pakistan. The plan clearly highlights there will be a requirement of more than 30,000 megawatts by year 2031 on solar power projects. Similarly, government has announced a very new initiative for the development of fast-track solar power projects. The main objectives are security, affordability, environmental protection, sustainability, and foreign exchange saving on import of expensive fuel. Now, the government of Pakistan recent initiative related to solar power projects are based on the substitution of expensive fossil fuel based projects with solar projects. You know, at the moment, around 50% of our generation is based on renewable energy, which include fossil fuel, which includes furnace oil, HSD, LNG, imported coal. And we have to bear a lot, very foreign exchange on this. So government has basically brought out a new policy that at least we can save the fuel cost from these projects. So there is an incentive that these should be substituted with the solar power projects. Solar PV generation on 11 kV feeders. The distribution companies have been allowed to develop solar power projects on specific feeders. And there is solarization of the public buildings also. Now, solar power technologies. There are three key technologies of the solar power projects. First is photovoltaic. It directly converts light into electricity. Next is concentrating solar power. It uses heat from the sun to generate the generation, to heat the turbine, to provide heat to the turbines. Next is solar heating and cooling. We see the solar water heater in every home. There is a solar water heater. So PVC is the most commonly used technology because of its power capability and efficiency. Solar panels have efficiency of nowadays more than 20%. Now, solar photovoltaic technologies can be deployed at various grid stations, at various off-grid, such as solar street lighting, solar water pumping, roof electrification, solar water heaters, and solar power vehicles. Now, these can also be applied in all on-grid applications. The on-grid applications of the solar PV technologies are commercial power projects, net metering, solar thermal electric, capital power generation through solar, and commercial lighting. Now, special economic zones. As you know, the MOU was signed between government of China and government of Pakistan for the development of special economic zone under CPEC. These are 9 zones which are there under the CPEC. Now, if you see the location of these special economic zones are spread throughout the country. They are located in Punjab, AJK, GV, KPK, Sindh, and Balochistan. In every province, there is a special economic zone, and even in AJK and Gilgit-Baltistan. Now, these zones have been created through SEC, Special Economic Zone Act, which has been passed by the Parliament. BOI is the main lead role. BOI is playing lead role for the projects, SEZ projects in the CPEC. Now, special economic zones can be developed by the private sector, by public-private partnership, and by public sector also. Board of Investment is the focal point to handle these, and it provides one window facility to investors. Now, there are a number of incentives which have been developed by the government of Pakistan for the projects under this CPEC. And all investors can develop projects within the special economic zones, and investors can also develop special economic zones by themselves. So opportunities are there. Now, solar PV panels and allied equipment. This is the important topic. Now, government of Pakistan is encouraging basically manufacturing of the solar power panels and allied equipment also. Engineering Development Board has been entrusted the task to prepare solar PV panels and allied equipment. A workshop was held same in Serena, in which the contours of that policy was discussed thread and bare. Shortly, this policy will be announced by the government of Pakistan to encourage investors to manufacture solar panels and solar equipment within the country. Now, there are a number of companies which are operating in Pakistan. The companies are Rayon, These I have named all these 10 companies which are playing lead role in Pakistan, and nearly most of the companies are the Chinese companies. You see Sky Electric is there, you see Alpha Solar is there, you see ZI Solar is there. So there are a number of companies, and the equipment which these companies are using is mostly Chinese. Genco is Chinese, J Solar Panel is Chinese, Trina, Longmi, and all these equipment, all these companies which are developing small solar projects like net metering. This is also a small project, even of 10 kilowatt. And they are all using PV panel of Chinese make. If you see, China is the world's largest manufacturers of these solar panels, of the solar equipment. The main manufacturers of China are Chent Group, JA Solar, and these are all the main basically. If you see the graph, in the graph, red line indicates that China is moving very, very fast, very, very fast. It has left all countries in manufacturing. These are the major manufacturers: Chent, JA Solar, Genio Energy, Suntech, Yangli, China Sun Energy. So these are, if you see, these are red line. How fast Chinese are moving in the manufacturing of the solar panels. This is a very important slide. It indicates that China has added around 53,000 megawatts in year 2021. And total generation on solar in China is 306,973 megawatts. So China is a world leader in solar power generation and manufacturing of solar panels. Hence, we should learn tremendous lessons from China. Now, this, if you see that solar panel mainly consists of, this is silicon. Other are just very small quantity. The main is that blue element. This is made of silicon. Main material which is required to manufacture solar panels is the silicon. And this raw material is abundantly available in Pakistan. So main material for manufacturing of solar panels is silicon, which is abundantly available in Pakistan. There are many lessons which we can learn from China. I have tried to table some of the lessons. First lesson is long-term planning. China's success in solar power generation and manufacturing is due to the long-term planning and investment in this industry. The China success story in the manufacturing of solar projects and solar panels is scale and efficiency. China has become a world leader in solar panel manufacturing by achieving economy of scales and improving efficiency of its production. Research and development, this is very, very important, which we in Pakistan are missing. China has invested heavily in research and development to improve the performance of these solar panels and reduce their cost. Collaboration and investment. China has collaborated between research institutions, universities, and private sector to promote solar industry. Policy support. China's success in solar power generation and manufacturing has been supported by a range of policies, which is feed-in tariff, tax incentive, government procurement program, etc. Overall, China's experience in solar power generation and manufacturing highlights the long-term planning, investment in research, development, and collaboration, and the policy support in driving the growth of renewable energy industry. Now, I will try to conclude with some of these points. Pakistan has abundant solar energy. I've talked on it. Demand of solar projects is tremendous. Pakistan is a growing economy. Demand is there. Special economic zones have been established, providing lucrative incentives for the manufacturers of industries such as manufacturing of solar panels. Investment in manufacturing of solar presents an ideal opportunity for reduction in the carbon footprints and simultaneously generate steady revenues. China is the world leader in solar generation and manufacturing of the solar panels. Hence, we should learn lessons from Chinese experience. Special economic zones under CPEC is a lifetime opportunity for Pakistan and Chinese companies to work together for the development of the manufacturing industries in Pakistan. Thank you very much. If there are any questions,
We'll have the question and answer session at the end. And as I promised, these set of experts that are here will give you the hands-on knowledge of what we have and what we need actually in terms of the policy articulation. I shall now be moving to, as I said earlier, my friend Mr. Wang. He has just joined Pakistan and he's now the GM of China Energy, and I think his company, along with Three Gorges and rest of the Chinese enterprises, are looking at a greener, as they say, greener posture and a greener redefining of our energy basket. So, Mr. Wang, Misho. Maybe I may even.
All distinguished guests, good afternoon. I'm Wang Huihua, the General Manager of Energy China Pakistan branch. I feel it's my great honor to attend such a great forum and humbled to share some of my little opinions. During the last visit of your Prime Minister of Pakistan to China in November 2022, Government of Pakistan and China have jointly agreed to launch Green Corridor in alignment with agriculture, food security, as well as low carbon and the environment development of energy sector. For second phase of CPEC, there's no doubt that green industry development would be attached great importance in Sino-Pak cooperation. Pakistan is blessed with a huge renewable energy potential, which can be utilized for power generation and to meet energy needs of the country. Government of Pakistan has timely released several incentive policies and is determined to develop 10 gigawatt renewable energy in the coming years, increased hike of all types of fossil fuel, requirement for mitigating adverse effect of climate change and prospect of sustainable development make green energy the cheapest and the best solution for social and economic development of Pakistan. As one of the mainstays of in CPEC project, Energy China has already deeply rooted in Pakistan for more than 3 decades, and it's continues making its contribution to the infrastructures and the power development of Pakistan. Now we are doing Dasu, Momand, and Balakot hydropower project, and Nilumujam hydropower is completed, and we are invested 2 huge hydropower in Pakistan. The first one is Suki Canary, which is on the construction. It will start COD next year. And the next one is Azadapata hydropower. Now is on the financial process. Energy China will also actively answer the call of Green Corridor immediately, adhering the exploring more possibilities to share ideas and provide support for development of green industry in Pakistan. During communication with local enterprises and factories, we found the majority manufactured components of the solar panel and the wind turbine are imported from abroad. So, which is it's a bottleneck for the upgrade of green industry, especially in current situation. Integration of green energy industries will play a vital role in breaking the bottlenecks. In this context, Energy China has tried to utilize its technical expertise, industry resource, and project development experience to work out a proposal regarding solar equipment manufacture and also plus 1.5 gigawatts solar plant investment in Pakistan, which will integrate industry manufacturing and renewable energy generation in one package and optimize the investment modality in a more efficient way. On one hand, Energy China will introduce Chinese solar PV assembly and invite manufacturer to set up the plant in Pakistan so as to support the localization of equipment manufacturers in Pakistan and also reduce solar EPC cost. On the other hand, Energy China will finance the solar generation project in a low financing cost with bankable condition provided by government of Pakistan, which in turn will consume the manufactured products from the localized factories and bring up it into large scale and finally a competitive company in the market, even an export company of solar equipment to surrounding countries. During the development process, it will definitely vitalize the economy of concerned areas and promote innovation and industry upgrading in solar energy in a long run. Definitely, the above proposal entails a lot of support from government of Pakistan, such as land taxation, favorable energy policies, etc. We are glad to have rounds of discussing with the BOI and the ministries. It is firmly believed that with the support and the guidance of relevant agencies, also the alignment I have got from this conference, the integration of green energy industries will finally take shape. At last, I'm proud to witness the joint cooperation and support between China and Pakistan. Looking ahead to the future, Energy China is always committed to strive for sustainable development, continue to integrate into the local economical cycle and fulfill the social responsibility, contributing to the realization of Green Corridor Initiative. Once again, thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. Wang, I just would like to highlight one important thing, and that came to my mind when I was hearing my friend Mr. Wang Hui. When we went to Expo Dubai and representing, I was lead as the CEO of the Board of Investment and lead in Dubai Expo. There were a lot of MOUs and a lot of commitment shown by our Western investors to invest in our special economic zone. So I was in charge of 2 Rashakai and Daraban special economic zone. And in both of those special economic zone, and now we're expanding that in KP. We were able to attract investment. The discussion is LOI has been signed, and a lot of support came from the KP government. And now we are moving. And KP is also the only province where we have the hydrogen project under discussion at a much larger details with the Kuwaiti Fund. And why I'm referring to Kuwaiti Fund, because my friend Sajid has just completed his report on sort of investment proposal for some of our, I think, Singaporean colleagues, and together we've been active. I remember when I was the head of CPEC, our first seminar, the first corporate seminar under CPEC, Sajid, as the president of ACCA, was able to host and help me bring in the corporate sector in our discussion. So Sajid, over to you. Please give your insight on how to bring in investment, and especially in the special economic zone that we so much, talk about.
Assalamu alaikum. it's green, it's afternoon, we have eaten. Assalamu alaikum. I think Daud Saab ne do teen cheezein shuru mein pick ki thi, and I'll start with that. Sustainability, ESG, climate change, that is something which is very close to our heart as an ACC, and personally, for me, this is something, a subject I'm trying to progress, learn, and try to share a lot of stuff. So ESG stands for that. It's environment, social, and governance. And the social requires us to have a proper gender balance wherever we are going. That's not only the gender balance, but the inclusivity and equity there, which include the people with the disability, and make sure that we create equitable structures and environment where everybody can flourish. Second part, when we are talking about the green sustainability and all that, one of a dilemma which we see a lot in the room is the one-time use plastic. And that's one of a major element which is damaging the environment. If you look at that, the overall 9 billion ton which is produced so far, the 7 billion is still sitting in the waste. When we are talking green, we are talking about practically going back to fundamentals, circular economy. The nature has designed the entire earth and planet and universe based on a certain principles, which is circularity, how we can reduce the waste. And when we talk about solar, and Zubair Saab highlighted rightly, the capacity to generate energy which solar is providing, we are wasting it by not using it. I think that's the fundamental principle why we should be looking at those renewable sources, which the overall nature has already provided us and which we can benefit from. I think the biggest learning, if we pick up from, we work a lot with China as a ACC, and we do a lot of research as well. Even on sustainability and the energy side, you will find somewhere like 155 reports on ACCA website. And that start from a very much the investment product, the financial reporting, and going to the level where the smart cities frameworks are designed based on renewable energies. So this is the breadth and depth, the way ACCA brings some research or some activity to the table. Just going back to China, I think fundamentally what we need to learn from there. And that's not only for solar, I think it's come on all the areas which we start with. They work on the system. That's the first thing. It's not something which I'll do today and I'll not do tomorrow. They create a system and there's accountability for that. So if we are looking at any project and anything on a CPAC side, I think what we should expect to build the confidence of our partner is that we have a system and there is accountability to really run that system. And the second part, I think passion to improve that system on an everyday basis. So every day when you are working, how you can have more productivity on a day after, and how you can be more productive on a day after before. So that's the chain which create that system and then the improvement of that. If you look at the solar journey which China had, it's not without challenges. There were a lot of subsidies. There were a lot of issues on a land utilization. There were a lot of issues on a urbanization or moving away the local population. But that was a certain part of that. Whenever you go for the large solar farms, these are the things which are going to happen. But they had a policy, they have a plan, and today they are producing 84% of the global solar panel. Although they need 36% in their own country, and the rest is being exported. So if we are looking at, and if we want to attract investment, we have to go back to fundamentals. How we can reduce waste, how we can generate system, how we can build confidence around the accountability, and that will bring that investment to the table or special economic zone if we talk about it. So starting from there, and then we come to the solar panel, and Zubair Saab already talked about the abundance of silicon which is available, and then there's a process around it. And the R&D is another area which is important. If we are picking up a sector or if we are picking up a certain segment, then we have to create those zones which provide the R&D there, the talent there, the machinery, equipment, and how quickly we can have that machinery and equipment manufactured locally, because otherwise with the solar panel, if we are still going with the grid level solution, we are not going to replace the fossil fuel import side of it. We are not substituting because we are significantly importing the solar panel now. And then we will be importing O&M services from the original manufacturer later. So if we are going with that, so the concept comes back to the value chain. So it's not only the solar panel we should be looking at, we should be looking at the entire value chain to produce and deploy that. And do we have enough requirement domestic to really deploy that? Can we partner with China to become a partner within the value chain, which can help us to do the exports? Right? So they have got a trade relationship. China is working with US on the solar as well on our R&D side. So why can't we? So if we are looking at the solar panel, it's not only the solar panel manufacturing, it's the entire value chain. And that's where the real value exists. And that's where the financial products can support us at the same time. So if you look at from the learning side, I'll just summarize it. So it has to be a system-based, value chain driven. There has to be a certain accountability. The partnership and the cooperation which has taken China from the place where they were and where they are. So there's the international corporations and the partnership. It has to be based on a trade, not grant. There has to be a commercial viability of the project. It can't be based on aid. It should be based on trade, on its merit. So that's another learning from China. Aid doesn't work, trade does. And trade requires relationships. So I think these are the key areas which I would like to leave you with, and we are available for question if you really want to get into details and numbers and further data. So that is also available. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sajid, and I think you've very nicely given the impact on the society as such, and also the social element. But more importantly, it's just highlighted the aspect of research and development and innovation. And I think I've been saying this to think tanks here, I've been saying it to universities, that, you know, the connectivity of policies and the seamless trade and the connectivity of ideas won't happen unless, I think one of our colleagues also mentioned about connecting of research, technology, innovation, and universities and academia to academia linkages. But I think one person that I know and will be speaking now has led this very nicely in the Special Technology Zone Authority. He's been championing this. He's been speaking about at all forums. We've together attended several, and perhaps again, I would also make a mention here that perhaps KP was the first province to have its first technology zone. So I'm glad that I was instrumental in what Special Technology Zone Authority is working on. So Hamza, over to you, and please give us some of the challenges that you've seen.
Thank you very much, Bhatt, for your kind words. And it feels like a homecoming because I've been the former head of operations for Pakistan China Institute. And it's good to speak what I used to organize for the institute. And I want to congratulate STPI and PCI on arranging this, because I think this is high time because of the macroeconomic situation of the country. These are the sort of conversations which transforms country's export strategy. Before I carry on the PV side, let me sort of introduce myself and the authority. My name is Hamza Saeed Orakzai. I'm the Director for Strategic Planning and Regulatory Affairs, and I represent Special Technology Zones Authority. And the key difference between Special Economic Zones, which is regulated by Board of Investment, is focused on large-scale manufacturing and mass production, and mainly revolves around third industrial revolution technologies. While STZA focuses on the fourth industrial revolution technologies, and the core difference is based on factor of production. जब हम special economic zones देखते हैं, large scale manufacturing देखते हैं, so factor of production is normally factory, semi-skilled labor, raw materials, and there's this economic output that could be a PV or a bottle. But when it comes to fourth industrial revolution technologies, you need skilled labor, internet, high-speed internet, you need computing power, cloud services, and the economic output could either be physical or a cyber physical or a completely digital solution. And the factor of production works in a way कि एक बच्चा चिच्चावत्ती में बैठ के he can make $1 million code. You never know. So the policy, we became the act, the ordinance was introduced in 2020, December, and we became an act on 6th October 2021. So we are 14 months old institution. And in past 14 months, we have notified 7 technology zones, 2 in KP, as well when Hassan Saab was heading KPBOI, 2 in Islamabad and 2 in Punjab. We are rolling out another 15, inshallah, in 2023. 3 of them are operational. 2 of them are in universities. एक जो है हरिपुर में है, which is operational. In Islamabad, next to Saudi Park Tower, you see a State Life Tower, which is now a technology tower, and it's been completely filled by around 9 different technology companies. Huawei is also one of the zone enterprises. And apart from this, I also head the China desk for the authority. And for the first time in Pakistan, Alhamdulillah, 2 months ago, we established 10,000 square feet China-Pakistan Science and Technology Cooperation Center within a Chinese technology zone called Z Park, which has around 28,000 technology companies. उनका data में देख रहा था, every day 29 new technology companies are born there. And one of the idea was, so let me sort of talk about challenges in terms of regulatory framework. Pakistan does not have law problems. They have more implementation problems. We have great policies, we have great long-term visions, and we have great systems as well. However, paper पे तो बड़ा आराम से लगता है कि मीटर लग जाएगा 15 दिन के अंदर electricity का. But once you start experiencing it, I was sitting and overhearing a conversation. कि जी मीटर पे 6 महीने लग जाते हैं, and then you need some sort of lubricant, speed, money as well to get things implemented. So we have these very great visions. We have this great implementation plan, but how do we change our mindset? I think, and I want to focus on that because my colleagues Zubairi Saab and Sajid Saab has covered almost, and Bhatt Saab has covered most of the points. So I want to talk about mindset. Pakistan really needs to think, how do we move from red tape to red carpet? Because we go to these international multilateral institutions asking for $300, $500 million and take phenomenal radical steps. But we abuse investors, the same investor who are willing to invest $300 million and probably will result in billions of dollars of exports over a decade. So how do we transform from that? So in terms of in our legislation, for the first time, we have created these special laws which overrides other laws, and we are trying to create business cases. And the vision is to think of a businessman, for instance, a Chinese investor wanting to invest in Pakistan. How does he know every policy sitting in Beijing? Why does he have to come here, spend around 6 months, spend $3,000, $5,000, $20,000, hire a consultant who will complicate even the simplified form because he wants a long consulting agreement for that investor. So we have to understand these conflicts and human experiences. So at the authority, what we're doing is we're trying to create use cases. So for instance, if you were to set up a PV manufacturing facility, अब मैं अगर आपको बड़े honestly बताना start करूं तो we did a use case, 6 use cases for instance vaccine production, and we figured out 18 जगहों पे physical NIC की copy submit करनी है या passport की copy submit करनी है. Why can't we submit it to one place and then all the data is shared? That's where our own Pakistan technology single window comes in. And BOI has done a lot of work, Pakistan Regulatory Modernization Initiative. I think KPBOI has also played a very important role. And CPEC has been I think, a good project in terms of understanding कि इतने ज़्यादा interest के बाद भी, and with $62 billion committed, we were only able to materialize $28-29 billion. Because in our constitution, बड़ी ज़्यादा जगहों पे तो पता नहीं चलता कि province का है या federal का है. So how do we, अगर वो province चाहता है तो फिर federal में lift नहीं मिलती. So these are the sort, and these are serious concerns. The second is actually in the power sector, बिल्कुल ठीक है, I support IPPs as well, but I think we need to learn a few things from our neighboring country as well. And also understand that if we were to give market access of 20,000 megawatts in next 7 to 8 years, what sort of transfer of technology is taking place? And I mean, I can keep on with a lot of controversial statements, but I'll try to, because I'm a public servant. So I'll try to refrain. But we have to make sure that if we give market access, then there must be some sort of transfer of technology. Otherwise, we'll remain reliant on importing and renewing our same renewable facilities that we have. The third is public-private partnership. Abhi to provinces may we have public-private partnership. Here we have a public-private partnership authority. But if you truly study normally these project materializes in 2 years, 3 years. Now, investors don't have that time. And I think the government enterprises and agencies need to think that time is money, right? And we take investors for granted because we think too highly of our country. Probably we have great potential, but the sort of cost that investors incur in terms of materializing project here is phenomenal. And that's why we have very low investment materialization rate. Because if you look at the newspapers and the sort of MOUs that we sign, probably if I can do a rough research and tell you $150 billion MOUs in past 5 years, but how much of them have been materialized? So we have to come out of this network approach, who knows who, and create a very standardized security and public-private partnership packages with rule engines. So for instance, just at top of my head, if I were to say कि $5 million है तो ये requirements है, 5 से 10 है तो ये requirements है. I don't have to go to a one window that opens to 20 other windows. So that is एक जो हमारा ease of doing business वाला concept है वो है. At Special Technology Zones Authority, and this is my last vote, what we have done is we have tried sustainable infrastructure and renewable energy. जितनी भी हमारे special technology zones की development है, उसमें extra points है, so that we are able to promote and program sustainability, environment, and renewable technology within our infrastructure development. This is it from my side. I'm open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hamza. Since you are a government public servant, so I have two of my eminent colleagues who are not. So I think, and they've actually invested in Pakistan and are doing great work. So I would first request Mustafa Bhai, the Chief Executive Officer of Freon Energy, is doing great work on the renewable side, and he'll speak some of the challenges, the opportunities, and I think we've had a good series of points coming, and we should be able to give our input to the government also.
Thank you, Ji. Bit under the weather. I will not take too much of your time. I think a lot of points have been covered by everybody. I'll just start with responding to some of the comments made by Sajid and Hamza. I think starting with Sajid's point on, demand, is that a question? I personally feel it's not a question. In our country and in most developing countries, economics drives demand. Whereas you've had this spectrum of subsidies available in Western economies, and this is how new technologies like renewables have been introduced. In Pakistan, there's no need of subsidies because economics suggests that technologies like solar and wind are the cheapest sources at any scale, at large scale, on distributed level. Last year, despite the fact that we had trade restrictions for the majority of the year, we could only trade for 5 months because of the country's situation. We imported 2.4 gigawatts of solar panels. And this was at least 70% more than for whole of 2021. And this has been the phenomenon, over the last 10 years that every year our demand for this technology is doubled, primarily driven by economics. So I don't think demand is a question. The question is of commercial viability. At what price point can we produce it? Is it the right thing to produce in Pakistan based on our core strengths and what we have available as raw material and capability in the country? I think that's a fundamental question, number one. Number two, I would agree with Hamza that A lot of it is down to how business friendly an environment we create in the country. And I can tell you right now, the environment is absolutely the opposite. You know, where some of the biggest investors over the last 20, 30 years are not even investing money in this country. So how can you expect foreign investors to come in and invest money in an environment where you don't know night from day, you know, how policies will change between today and tomorrow. So I think these are like, you know, pipe dreams, to be perfectly honest. I'll be very controversial today. And I think we have to take account of reality. Where do we stand as a nation? And then think about, is this the right thing for us? And now let me go back to my introduction. So I am Chief Executive of Rheon Energy. Rheon Energy has been the largest implementer of solar power in the country. We've done close to 300 megawatts of projects. And historically, we haven't done a single megawatt with the government. This is all private sector, because we believe that if you think about the energy system of Pakistan, which is at the heart of the economic problem we have, because of the SOE losses, circular debt, which is a large symptom of the losses we have in the system from distribution, transmission, then we have to think about how do we solve our energy crisis. I think fundamentally, number one objective any country should have in today's world is self-reliance, indigenization. We have to think about how do we become self-reliant in energy? What are the sources available to us locally, from fuel to equipment? You have to think about how do we indigenize our energy sources. That's number one. Number two, we have to think about what are the fundamental problems within our energy system. I think we can't shy away from this fact. And I feel the fundamental problem is the single buyer, single seller market. The fact that the government has regulation everywhere. The government has input into everything from distribution, sells most of the power. Government buys most of the power. Still, I see government tenders for the next 10,000 megawatt where the government again wants to procure large amounts of power, where we know they've bought this power at a very expensive rate. No matter what you buy solar, you buy, conventional power. We know government is not the most efficient buyer of power. So I think we have to let this wholesale market model flourish in Pakistan, like all the countries. The bottleneck in the energy system is distribution. As long as you have this dilapidated distribution, you have this incapacity in distribution system to even do basic net metering. Again, solar is a pipe dream. We cannot integrate 10,000 megawatts of solar power in this country, full stop, safely without bringing the grid down. This is something I've said to the government. Now, moving on from being morose and talking about what's wrong with the country, what shall we do going forward? I think it's very important. And, being somebody who's been associated with this industry, let me just give you a flavor of, the value chain within solar. And I would say that solar is part of the solution. It's not the only solution. You have to think about other renewable technologies. You have to think about how we will balance power when you have so much intermittent power coming to the national grid and on distributed scale. You'll need reserve, you need storage, which I feel is even more important than solar. But let's talk about solar. So if you think about the solar value, it starts with polysilicon, where you take silica quartz and you apply a high amounts of heat between 2,000 to 3,000 degrees. You heat it to that level to refine it. It requires a high amount of energy. And we've already discussed that China has concentration of manufacturing across all ends of the value chain. I can tell you the two Chinese companies dominate this end of the value chain. They probably account for 80% plus of the global demand in polysilicon. And if you evaluate who makes the money in this whole value chain, they're generating super abnormal returns. Why do they do that? Because the Chinese government has designed the system in a way that, large amounts of value is retained in that part of the value chain. Then it goes to wafer development, cell manufacturing, module manufacturing, and probably what we are best at doing is to package it and then sell it, distribute it. That's the best we can do because we don't have access to technology. That technology is not available to us. That technology is only available to the highest bidder, people with money. Saudi Arabia is investing tens of billions of dollars into PV manufacturing. We can't compete with that. Secondly, we can't spend a lot of money on R&D. One company which is present here spends $400 million on R&D annually. That's not the amount of money we can afford. The third argument I will make is the fact that if we are to assemble even panels here, we will need high amounts of subsidy. Otherwise, we will not be able to compete on the cost point at which China is manufacturing. And just to give you the scale of the manufacturing in China, you already know that 2021, they added 53 gigawatts. 2023, 4 of the largest Chinese companies will add 100 gigawatts between them. And last year, the whole world's demand was 300 gigawatts. Right? So they have that capability of adding 1/3 of the global output in 1 year. No country or geography in the world has that capability. They don't even come close. In Europe, it takes 4 years between licenses, environmental permissions and everything to set up one plant. If you're lucky. You know, it takes longer in other geographies. Over here, we can't even get our act together. So my 2 cents on what should be our strategy. Our strategy should be based on what our strengths are and what can be easily indigenized. We have to think holistically as a country, you know, what are those industries we should promote which will require the least amount of subsidy in Pakistan? And is that solar PV one of those industries? I don't have the answer. I'm not an economist, but I think we are in the middle of a dollar crisis. We have limited resources. We can only afford limited amount of subsidy, if at all. We know that India back in 91 took a decision to remove all subsidies, remove all protection, and that was the right decision, where the country started playing to its strengths, finally. So what are those industries we should promote in Pakistan that are to our best advantage, that play to our strength? Is PV one of them? I don't know. There's a huge demand like all other countries, but that evaluation has to be done. And I think Hamza made another point, and I think it's Sajid who made that point. We have to evaluate the whole value chain. So we know that in Pakistan, a lot of industries were set up on some sort of a deletion program, that eventually we'll be making car engines. Eventually we'll be making 100% of those, those products here in Pakistan. We haven't even reached 30%, 30, 40 years later. And now those industries have become a big part of our deficit problem economically. So unless we are confident as a country that we can go across the value chain and indigenize the whole value chain, probably we should not embark on, ambitious plans to develop those industries, is my 2 cents. So just because it's good for China, I would argue it's not necessarily good for Pakistan. And based on what I'm saying, I don't even think China is the right model to follow, because they have a completely different political system. They have unity of command. They can plan and implement things quicker than anybody else in the world. We can't do that. Technology moves much, much faster than that. So probably the right examples for us to follow are India, Turkey, and let's look at India, what they've done. They started by encouraging PV manufacturing. They came up with a policy where all government projects, it was mandated that they use local panels. You were offered a higher tariff on projects if you manufactured the panels locally. This is how the industry started. They started with minimal custom duty. Today, they stand at 40% custom duty on PV panel import. Similarly, if you look at Turkey, today it stands at 27% custom duty. That's a high level of subsidy that these countries are offering against this industry. Again, in an environment where subsidies are limited, are we willing to put that amount of resource into PV manufacturing? And then are we willing to sustain it going forward? Now, let me just give you one example. When the industry started, I've been associated with the industry for the last 8 years. We were importing everything. We were probably importing 100% of services and products. Today, we stand at 30% indigenization because we've had this sustained demand growth in the country and somewhat sustained policy around zero custom duty on panels. Are we able to sustain policies over that period for the next 10 years? If the answer is yes, we can indigenize. We can go further. Probably we can go 60%, 70%. So the number one requirement is long-term sustainable policies, but that's after we answer the first fundamental question: is this the right industry to promote in Pakistan? And if the answer is yes, I would like to think yes, because I belong to the industry. I have an exclusive agreement with one of the largest manufacturers to manufacture panels here. But what we need to do as a nation, take stock of where we are. We are stuck We are stuck because of the bad decisions we took around, car manufacturing and supporting many other industries. And we are, bailing them out, paying them billions and billions of dollars through subsidies. We don't want to be stuck with the same problem unless we think it's in the long-term strategic interest and we are willing to stay the course and sustain those policies over a long period. Governments come and go, we'll have to support this industry. Otherwise, we'll be stuck again in 5 years as the demand picks up for this. Secondly, I feel that, as Hamza put it, you need business-friendly environment. I was in a city called Hangzhou, and in Hangzhou, I saw large battery manufacturing. And I asked one of the owners of the plant, I said, how did China get to this point? And he quoted one example. He said, in the 90s, we had this great opening up. And what you need to do if you had an entrepreneurial idea, you'll go to your mayor of the city. That mayor of the city will allocate you land. Next day, you'll walk into a bank, a state-owned bank, you'll use that as collateral, and you'll have an industry. You'll have all the resources you need to set up an industry. Today, do we have the policies that cater to that sort of an entrepreneurial spirit in the country? I think we have to think about that. So yes, absolutely business-friendly environment, supporting entrepreneurs to come into this area and incentivizing them. And as I said, I think finally, we have to look after our national interests. We have to make sure that it is in the long-term interest of the country. We have to ensure that there is technology transfer. As I said today, we don't have access to that technology because a lot of competing rich geographies, are going after the technology. We'll have to compete for it. And then we'll need to negotiate well. We'll need to absolutely negotiate better as a country. And we know we did a poor job in the past of negotiating on technology transfer. So I think this is a responsibility on the policymakers, on the government. The private sector is willing to play its role as long as it's involved in the policy making. Provided those three conditions are met, we can make anything a success in this country. I think we have the capability. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I was in China just recently and I was called as a BRI expert. So there, President Xi made a speech at the plenary session and he said that you do not fit in others' shoes. So perhaps that was what exactly you were referring to. And we should look at our indigenous resources and our perhaps indigenous experts who are sitting on the table and perhaps do long-term planning, because if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. I would now request my friend and colleague again from the technology sector, Mr. Usman Muhammad. He's the Chief Technology Officer, Longhi Central Asian Region. And again, sir, just tell us the challenges.
Assalamu alaikum. Just to introduce myself, I am Usman Muhammad Maud. And I belong to Longhi Solar Company. Longhi, for the past 3 years running, is the world's largest manufacturer and #1 solar company in the world. So currently, Longhi has a market share of the production capacity of around 18% of the entire world. And similarly, we are a vertically integrated company. So all the supply chain that you see in a solar panel manufacturing, we have invested in all of it. Primarily, Longhi was set up as a wafer manufacturer, and currently we hold around 40% market share in the world for wafer of monocrystalline solar technology. So coming from a solar panel manufacturer and working in Pakistan for that company, I also see some challenges. And of course, we have also worked with a lot of our partners to work out a solution to produce solar panels in Pakistan. So just to start that, Pakistan is actually, we deem that Pakistan is roughly around 2000 megawatt per annum market. So if you want to manufacture solar panel, so that is the market share that you have, the market size that you have. And of this 2000 megawatt, we see that the market is divided into 3 different types of modules. So one is the top quality A-grade modules. Then we have small modules that are primarily used by remote locations. For example, there will be a village in probably in KP or Balochistan where there is no grid electricity and they can't afford the larger 500, 600 watt solar panel, which each solar panel costs around 50, 60,000 rupees. So they target the smaller solar panels. And then there is a market share that Mushtaba is also tapping, for example, that is the C&I and residential sector. That is the main chunk that I think any manufacturer would like to tap into. And that is the major market that we have. And lastly, we have IPPs. Unfortunately, for the past 3 years, I don't think that we had a lot of solar IPPs in Pakistan. So for now, let's count that as a 0% market share. So of the 2000 megawatts, roughly around 1200 megawatt to 1500 megawatt is consumed in the C&I and residential sector, which buys the high capacity 500 watt plus solar panels, which are of the latest technology. The remote locations that we have, the off-grid locations, they use an older technology and they have the smaller solar panels. So what I think any manufacturer coming into Pakistan would definitely target the C&I and residential sector. Even if like the government has announced around 10,000 megawatts of solar panels in IPP mode, I don't think any manufacturer would be able to, set up a plant and actually deliver solar panels for those projects, because even if you only talk about installing a module assemblies plant, that too requires around 2 years to just set up and start running. So if you are targeting IPPs in the next 2 years, that facility won't even be ready to start manufacturing solar panels. So that would be out of the question. So if I move on to solar panel manufacturing and what the numbers look like if you actually want to invest into it. There are 4 major sectors that have been previously mentioned when you look at the complete supply chain of solar panel manufacturing. The first is the polysilicon extraction refinement. Then there is the ingots and wafer section. Then there is the cell manufacturing. And lastly, there is the module assembly and manufacturing. So module assembly and manufacturing is the least capex intensive project that you can install. And globally, if you look at the numbers, they actually quote the factory numbers in gigawatts. So the minimum size they recommend that you install is a 1000 megawatt solar panel manufacturing facility per annum. So then the production capacity would be 1000 megawatts. So if we look at that number, the cheapest that you can go with the latest technology is like $20 million for a 1000 megawatt production capacity. And this is just assembly of solar panels. You're buying everything from China and you're just assembling it here in Pakistan. If we go further up into the supply chain, there is cell manufacturing. And a cell manufacturing facility takes around 3 to 4 years to make. And if you want to install a cell manufacturing facility that has a 1000 megawatt production capacity, that is around $40 to $60 million. And it will take around 3 to 4 years to make. Moving up to the supply chain, there is ingots and wafer. That is around $70 to $100 million investment for a facility that can produce 1000 megawatts per annum. But if we set up a facility that is producing 1000 megawatts per annum, that won't be achieving economies of scale, because once you you get to the point of ingots and wafer manufacturing, the minimum size currently being installed by our company and our competitors is close to 5000 megawatts. So that is the basket size that we say that it will start becoming competitive for you. And we normally install around 20,000, 30,000 megawatt facilities. And if we go to the source like silicon extracting and refinement, that again is a $70 to $150 million investment, and that takes around 6 to 8 years to set up this facility. And again, this also requires that the production facility should at least be 10,000 to 30,000 megawatt facility rather than 1000 megawatt capacity. So the numbers I've quoted are for 1000 megawatt production capacity facilities. it is also important to note that polysilicon refinement and wafer manufacturing is a very, very energy intensive project. And like in Pakistan, I think we have the highest cost of energy in the entire world. So I was reading a report that if you want to set up a manufacturing facility that is competitive in the international market, China is very cheap in the international market. I mean, competing with India, Turkey, Europe, then you need the energy cost to be at max to be 9 cents per watt. We are currently standing at 20 to 22 cents. So I don't think that would actually make sense to any investor to come into Pakistan, set up an energy intensive project, and the Pakistan having the highest cost of energy that you can find in the world. So that would be a very, very difficult challenge to overcome. Secondly, there is, if we only talk about setting up an assembly plant of solar panels, the second challenge comes from the supply chain, because you will be importing glass, you will be importing aluminum, you will be importing back sheets, cells, wafers, everything from China. So that becomes a supply chain nightmare. Because at the moment, what we're doing is we're just taking solar panels, putting them into boxes and sending to Pakistan. If you set up an assembly facility, you're sending wafers from a separate company, you're sending aluminum from a separate company, glass from another company, and you have to manage the entire supply chain. And secondly, because, for example, LONGi has a current manufacturing capacity of 85,000 megawatts. When we go and negotiate the raw material prices, what we get, the pricing we get will not be available to any manufacturer that has set up a 1,000 megawatt facility. So that is something I learned from Mustafa, that it will cause a margin stacking issue. So your glass manufacturer would be charging a much higher cost than he's charging LONGi. Your aluminium supplier would be charging a much higher cost than which he's charging LONGi, and so on and so forth. So overall, the material cost that eventually the Pakistani company will get is much higher than what the existing Chinese manufacturers are getting. Moving on, if I give you just an example of other than China controls around 90% of the manufacturing. Other than China, there is India, which there is a lot of consensus that if somebody is going to replace China, that is going to be India. And then there is Europe and there is US that manufactures solar panels. So if you look at the price of the solar panels from each of these regions, so China, if you take China as the base case, India is 10% higher than China. They have put in tariffs on solar cell import. If you want to import solar cells, there are tariffs. If you want to import wafers, there are tariffs. So they have put in custom duties to make sure that the Indian manufacturers survive. If you look at Europe and US, they are producing solar panels that are roughly 30% higher in cost than China. And again, some of the European countries, they have mandated that any solar panel made in China cannot be imported into their country. Similarly, US has also imposed such policies. So, for example, LONGi, we hold a very good market share in Europe and US. We had to set up a new manufacturing facility in Malaysia and Vietnam just to cater to those markets. We never considered Pakistan to be the potential countries where we could set up our factory because of the high energy cost, political instability, and economic instability. So we don't want to invest into a country where even we are unsure how it will pan out. So if we look at the entire PV manufacturing industry, it is also facing some issues. For example, the polysilicon extraction and refinement process that I talked about, that is the major bottleneck for every company that is manufacturing solar panels. For example, LONGi can manufacture 150,000 megawatts of solar wafers in any given year. But the problem is we can only sell close to 100 to 105,000 megawatts just because of unavailability of the raw material. So there are bottlenecks in the existing supply chain as well. So if you are just adding your manufacturing facility on the existing bottlenecks, I think that the investment company would face a lot of challenges that they'll have to overcome. One more point that when you invest into Pakistan, the financing cost available within Pakistan is very high. So if you are securing a loan that is giving you, I think interest rate at like KIBOR is close to 17-18%. And in the international market, if you secure a loan financing, you're getting it close to 3, 4, 5%. So this adds to your capex and of course the operating costs and subsequently the cost of your manufactured product. So the working that Longi has done, and we are also working with a lot of local partners to, try to make sure that we can make this the dream of making solar panels in Pakistan a reality. We think that Pakistan needs to impose an import duty of close to 30 to 40% just to make sure that the investor breaks even. So we have to make sure the investor is making money just to entice him to invest into Pakistan. So on that note, I think I'll conclude. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Usman. I think as the former CEO of KP's Special Economic Zone Authority, I think the discussion that we have, I think we should take, and I would request Mustafa is here and some of our colleagues from SGPI are here. I would request that we should take it to perhaps to the provincial level also. Let's invite more private investors, because ease of doing business, we worked, I am guilty of some of the actions or inactions that were taken, taken or not taken. And also, I think the point of circular economy and how is it reflective on us is perhaps important. And therefore, that reminds me of a Chinese old proverb, and it goes that, in order to attract the phoenix, you have to build the nest first. So I think we are in the process of building that nest, and by one step each time we will go forward. I would now request the audience to please ask questions. When you ask, please ask a question rather than a statement. And also I would request to introduce yourself when you're asking.
My name is Numan Bashir and I am from SGPI. So I want to have a better understanding about how SEZs can play their part in making it easy or for inducing ease of business in terms of manufacturing of PVs.
I think I'll answer briefly, and then I will request Hamza perhaps on the technology zone side. For us, and we should again learn from the Chinese experience. And till now, we've not been able to understand the implementation mechanism of special economic zone. I think these special economic zones are supposed to be the center of excellence. And they should have this ease of doing business mechanism, which should be facilitating the investors. Besides the policies that the government gives, the 10 years tax holiday and the import duty exemption and some of the other utilities that are provided by the federal government and provincial government. I think the most important aspect that the special economic zones and the special technology zone should work on is the one window. Unfortunately, मैं खुद इस पे काम कर चुका हूँ. The one window, हमारी हर एक one window के अंदर कम से कम 8 या 9 windows होती हैं. So I think हम जब one window की बात करें तो I think, and I was a diplomat in Vietnam for 3 years. What I learned in Vietnam in terms of ease of doing business was exemplary. वो जिस तरह की ease हम expect करते हैं और हमें जिस तरह deliver करना चाहिए और जिसके बारे में हम बात करते हैं, I think और कुछ नहीं तो Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, you mentioned India, perhaps Bangladesh, Indonesia. ये हमारे दोस्त हैं और हमें सिखाने के लिए भी तैयार हैं. बस ये है कि हमें अब सीखना है इस पे. I think I perhaps would say कि हम उस तरह one window नहीं कर सके. I would expect Hamza to say a few words on the technology zone.
जी, इसके अंदर no offense to my special economic zones colleagues, but while we were drafting our act, so we sort of did a whole analysis on what not to do. what has been done in SEZs. तो उसके अंदर एक तो ये कि decision making concentration जो है वो हम एक forum पे लाए हैं. So for instance, special economic zones बनाने में you have to go to provincial level, then federal level, then जो board of approval है वो prime minister है, 4 chief ministers होते हैं, 4 chief secretary, वो quorum ही नहीं पूरा होता. So it takes around 2.5 years to get a special economic zone notified. In special technology zone, what we have done is we have made it very simple. You put in an application to a single approvals committee and it's a yes or no within 3 months. And that's how we've been able in past 14 months notify 7 special economic zones. Or 2023, inshallah, we are looking at another 15. Second is the Pakistan single window for technology. So BOI and at provincial level बड़ा अच्छा काम हुआ है, but what we have done is पाकिस्तान के अंदर एक मसला है, वो ये है कि everybody does good work but in silos. So you never really know what work has been done at federal and provincial level. So the first job that we did was create use cases and did business process reengineering. For instance, उनका ID card and the information auto loads with all those. Similar has been taken with FPR. Pakistan single window has actually institutions. So वो सारा कुछ हमारा एक one window, however कुछ बिल्कुल manual है. मोफा जो है वो manual है. Work visas अभी तक manual है. जहां तक business case के बारे में बात आ जाती है, we are more focusing on research and development side. Because one of the things that Pakistan has is cheap STEM labor. Because culturally we have done 2 things. एक तो हर साल 40 लाख बच्चा 18 साल का हो रहा है. उसमें 4 लाख बच्चे जो हैं वो तो यूनिवर्सिटी जा रहे हैं, 3.6 billion नहीं जा रहे. How can we vocationally train them? How can we transform them into a billable labor, whether that be semi-skilled or skilled? Second is हमने अभी सेमीकंडक्टर्स पे बहुत ज्यादा काम किया है और उसमें हमने ये वो किया कि capex heavy चीजें तो हम नहीं कर सकते, but what we can do is we can build their capacity on very specific things. For instance, semiconductor chip design. तो वहां पे हम चाइनीज से हेल्प ले रहे हैं. पीवी में भी आई वुड से दैट वी नीड टू स्टडी द होल वैल्यू चेन. और यहाँ पे सीटी और लॉन्गी ने काफी अच्छी बातें की हैं. सो वी रियली नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड कि वैल्यू चेन में हमारे पास एज कहाँ पे है, एंड देन इंट्रोड्यूस R&D and skilled labor in terms of adding value. So technology zones incentives are there. However, it really depends on the business case. पाकिस्तान को हम jointly promote करना चाहिए, चाहे वो SEZs हो, चाहे वो STZs हो, BOI and then alternate development board, and we need to have more collective approach in terms of how do we enable that transfer of technology. Thank you.
Thank you. And एक और important aspect that one should remember is that if you have 50 acre and more land, you can set up your own private sector led SCZ. And in KP, we were able to attract Fatma, Sapphire, and now one more. So I think similarly in the model of High Ruba, they've been a great success story, not just in Pakistan, but I think amongst BRI country, High Ruba has done exceptionally well. So we have good case studies and perhaps we can learn from them, and we are in the process of evolution. SCZs हमारे लिए हम बातें तो बड़ी करते थे, but perhaps 2016, post 2016, we were able to understand कि actually इसका meaning क्या है. Any other question? Since there is no question, I'll be selfish in asking one question from you, sir. अब अगर मैं आपसे पूछूं, both of you, yeah, sure, ma'am. But I'll just be selfish, and you can direct this answer to me for taking few notes back home. I mean, in your expectation from the private sector, how do you think that the SCZs should be should function in order to attract investment from the private sector, both from the Chinese side and also Pakistani side? आप दोनों can give your maybe 2 cents on this.
So regarding SEZs, I think one of the challenges that I mentioned was the cost of energy. So मेरे ख्याल से SEZs में आप एक specific ये चीज भी ऐड कर सकते हैं. For example, KP has a lot of hydel energy, and hydel is historically proven to be a very cheap cost of energy. तो अगर आप उसको leverage करें और कहें कि जी इस SEZ के लिए ये पावर प्लांट्स हैं और सिर्फ यही इसको प्रोवाइड करेंगे, बिकॉज देखें आपकी डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कंपनीज और आपकी पूरी ट्रांसमिशन नेटवर्क बहुत फ्रेल है. तो इफ यू हैव थर कोल माइन इन थर और आपकी एक SEZ आपने बनाई हुई है केपी में, तो आप बेसिकली वो सारी एनर्जी यहाँ पे ट्रांसमिट कर रहे हैं और एक दफा ग्रिड का फॉल्ट आता है जो कि साल में 2 दफा तो आ ही जाता है, जिसमें पूरा पाकिस्तान ब्लैकआउट हो जाता है। तो आप अगर एसईजी के साथ उसकी अपनी जनरेशन करके उसको एक आइसोलेटेड कर दें, क्योंकि देखिए अगर आपने प्रमोट करना है एनी इंडस्ट्री, उसको कॉस्ट ऑफ एनर्जी कम चाहिए। टेक्सटाइल को भी यही प्रॉब्लम है, अगर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग करते हैं पैनल की उसमें भी यही प्रॉब्लम है। तो आप एसईजी के साथ सोलर लगाएं, आप उसके साथ हाइडल लगाएं, अगर आपकी कोस्टल बेल्ट पे है तो आप विंड लगाएं और उसको ग्रिड से आइसोलेट कर दें और वहाँ की एक सेपरेट आप एक वर्चुअल नेटवर्क वहाँ बना के उसको इस्तेमाल करते हुए अपनी कॉस्ट ऑफ एनर्जी कम करें, क्योंकि ये आपकी प्राइमरी इनपुट है हर इंडस्ट्री की।
I think it's a good idea. I think wheeling is a very good concept. हमने इसको ट्राई किया है केपी के अंदर in one of the special economic zone, लेकिन अभी पंजाब में from one of the cities उन्होंने उसके अगेंस्ट रेड कर दिया, so
Actually, it's not operational. There is actually
some of it. Sir,
जी जी, वैसा बिल्कुल सही उस्मान ने कहा कि आपको you have to reduce the cost of input. Firstly, I think you have to be business friendly. You have to make the whole process much easier. To be perfectly honest, I think we have to start having honest conversation in this country. The whole process of allocation, licenses is, favored in, is in favor of people who already have industries, who have resources, who have access. I think unless you break that system, the elite capture will continue with SEZs. They will not be the best entrepreneurs in this industry or for any industry. So I think it has to be accessible for all. It has to be, made available on equality basis, not to the most influential businessmen in the country, for them to get their tariffs, to get their subsidies, take the best land allocation. That's number one. I think number two is not just the cost of energy. Cost of energy, yes, can be reduced by letting SEZs bring in their own energy, because we know if we do it on distributed basis using renewable energy, we can cut the cost of energy right down. I think that is certainly possible, but of course, energy has to be thought about. Secondly, of course, you have to think about cost of transport. You have to think about availability of skilled labor. Which zones or regions in Pakistan lend themselves to this industry well. So you have to locate them in those special zones. Special economic zone has to be in a special zone where you have good availability of energy resource, you have good skilled labor availability, you have good access to transportation. There will continue to be huge dependency on raw material import. It has to be near a port city. Unfortunately, all of those lead towards one city in Pakistan. So, if we have to expand our options, then we'll have to build those facilities in other locations, maybe make Gawada, fall going forward for us to have options. But for now, if I was looking at setting up PV facility, for example, I would only look at Karachi, because that's where majority of demand is, that's where skilled labor is, that's where you have availability of energy, irradiation. I can get my cost of energy right down. So yeah, those are the things.
brilliant. Sajid, you wanted to say something, and then Zubair sir, and then Senator sir.
I think again, we are talking about PV as an example, but we have to go to the fundamental. I'll again challenge everybody to go back to fundamental. The day and age we are living, the economics and social development and political development, that maturity has to come together. The accountability system, like he mentioned, that you can go to a mayor, ask for a land, and go to a bank and pledge it and get it, the funding for the industry. It's happened because mayor was accountable for that development. He has to act, right? Otherwise, he will not get elected next time.
They were competing.
They were competing. The mayors were competing with each other. So we have to, and if you look at the entire model, even the solar model, if you look at that, when it started early 2000, it was the local community and the governments who started with that, and they were defined as a zone, and they were defined it, and they were the learnings, and those learnings were like incorporated in the national level, right? So we have to go back that where the accountability is. Do we know any case where somebody within the bureaucrat or within the political government was fired because there was a project which was not done, and there was a businessman who backed out from the project? Is there any accountability? If I'm bringing an investor, where that accountability lies? So that economic, social, and political convergence is important if you want to go to the zone, and goes back to the fundamental concept the zones were designed for the accountability that everything happened there. The talent comes there, the technology comes there, the energy comes there. So that's one zone which work on a certain segment and excel it. So I'll go back to the fundamental. Unless until we solve the fundamentals, everything will remain. We will be talking about challenges because we are trying to solve something which has got a different problem.
So you're creating problems for me to go back to my colleagues in bureaucracy. So, and also,
There's a
you know,
solution there.
yeah, I agree.
Look,
But I think from,
local government.
you know, Sajid from ESG to ESP, yeah, so, Zubair sir.
Thank you. Now, every businessman, for every business, an investor has to visit a lot many government entities to get the work done. And government entities are always in slow motion. They have absolutely no hurry to take a decision. And time is the important. Time is money. The other thing is that there's the highest level of incompetency in the government departments. So that is really very, very troublesome. For any investors, that is the basic reason that investment is not coming forward.
So I think I would now request our Senator Sahiba to not listen to the competency part, but to.
They're just not working right.
First of all, it was a very learning session for me. And this solar and renewable has been very close to my heart. And it's a solution for Pakistan. If the kind of financial crunch we are in today would have not been there, where small steps were taken in 2008, 2009, it's 23 now. And they're still discussing what you said, challenges.
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to mention here two things. One was mentioned about car, you know, how we have failed the whole system. We have cheaper solutions available, but we don't like cheaper solutions. We like the most complicated and most expensive solution. For instance, we can have induction motors can be manufactured here, simple technology. And we are still buying something like $4 billion every year for transmission and for engines for all the car industry. And I was also told that a third party small units are made, everything is imported, and they are given 2% or something like that, and they provide as a local division. Anyway, it's sad, it's sad. So far you mentioned about capacity. Yes, we haven't built capacity at all. Whatever level we were 30, 40 years back, we are still going down and down and down. It's not in Parliament House also, we have increased in capacity only in terms of the good furniture and the good computers and things like that. Nothing more than that. It is not the people working there, the resources available for senators to, you know, to come up and to do their job. They're not there. So you are at your own if you want to do something. We did mention about very, very important thing is the skilled labor. Now, skilled, semi-skilled labor, it has to have something like what you call international certification. For engineering education, one of the small contribution, I initiated this going to Washington Accord. And we were the 7th country to apply for it, the leading countries. And we are not full member of Washington Accord, and we are facilitating other countries. But same way, we have to go for Dublin Accord and Sydney Accord, so that our workers, they are recognized worldwide. When we train them, we don't, we offer them the local job. We should give them enough, you know, facilitation. However, if somebody wants to cross borders and go there, the biggest allegation or the biggest contempt on the, you know, the decision makers. We are not the decision makers. We are the elite making policies for it, which is a fact. Let's accept it. How long we can deny? Thank you very much. I really learned. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Senator Rukhsana Zubairi, and I think this was for me individually, and I think for the audience and especially the youngsters on our right side, because this technology and everything we talk about is about you. 2030, when CPEC will be almost nearing its completion, you will be here and we shall be listening from there to your vision. And I would now request my great friend and the executive director, Pakistan China Institute, Mr. Mustafa Haider. Before you make the closing remarks, I would like to have a group photo with the panelists here, and after that, I would request you kindly give your closing remarks. Thank you. So I would request all the great leaders, the panel. Here, we can stand here. Ma'am, आप please Sir, आइए। मैम आइए। Sorry. पहले सब ठीक कर लिए सब मोदी सकते हैं
कैमरा नहीं आ रहा
Hello. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hassan Daud Saab, very grateful for moderating the session. Senator Roxana Zubairi Saiba, Hassan Daud Saab, and all other panelists. It was really a learning experience to hear all of you. सर सिर्फ 2.5 मिनट चाहिए आपके अटेंशन के, उसके बाद जितने मर्जी कार्ड लेने के लिए। I'm very grateful to all the panelists from different genres of work, government, investors, regulatory bodies, Chinese and Pakistanis, parliament, all to be there and talk about this very important subject. Before I talk about the theme at hand, the last one of the last comments was about the location of SEZs from our friend. And it just so happens that last night I arrived from Shenzhen to Islamabad. And as most of us know, that the model SEZ, considered internationally and seen as a key example of China's development after Deng Xiaoping went to Singapore and said, I want many Singapores in China, is Shenzhen, which, like Gwadar, 45 years ago, used to be a poor fishing village. And now when I was there, Sujit Saab, is close to your heart because I call you my ESG guru. 80% of the vehicles in Shenzhen were electric. It was an exception for a fuel-based car to be on the road. And electric stations everywhere. And then there are cars which are like cell phones. You can charge them in your house. You don't need to go to a charging station outside. Like we have petrol stations, you can just charge them in your house. And then if you go to the mall there in Shenzhen, like shelf product like a remote or TV. There were cars, electric cars by Huawei, cutting edge. And some other brands, which I saw as well, and I had the pleasure of driving them. It was fantastic. The point what I'm making about Shenzhen is that why it was so successful, if you look at its history, is because it was next to Hong Kong. And Hong Kong, Hassan Daud Sahab, you were at the embassy in Beijing as well. A lot of people know you from CPEC, but you actually have stayed in China prior to your role in CPEC. Shenzhen blossomed because there were existing business clusters in Hong Kong. And they were mature businesses there. So Shenzhen's location with Hong Kong, which connects to the West, because it was a British, under British rule, and through to mainland China, was so inextricably crucial that it blossomed. So I think one of the key things is, and that is also tied with your point, Hassan Daud Sahab, and Hamza, maybe aapne bhi baat ki iski, about one window. When you decide to have a special economic zone, how much feasibilities and analysis do we do? And comparison of, is this the right place to eventually have the special economic zone, which we will of course then promote and talk about. But how do we determine the location of an SEZ? That decision-making process. And do we have that capability to determine that? And if we don't, do we have the understanding to outsource that capability? Because everything can be outsourced. You want something, if you don't have something, it's not a problem. You can find the right person or a team to do it. In today's day and age, you can even do it online. So how do we determine? Hassan Daud Bhatt Sahab knows that when SEZs was being negotiated, we thought that the more we say we want with China, the more prosperity there will be. So originally there were 9 SEZs, every province, I think 2 or 3. 37. Eventually now there are 3. Rashakai, Allama Iqbal, and Dhabeji. I'm not going to be audacious enough to talk about any of them. And that said, I must say that Hassan Saab, while he was there, he's done a great job in what he could do. My point is that now the opportunity of greener CPEC, when we talk about the next phase, is huge for Pakistan. And Zubairi Saab, you've been talking about this, that by 2030, 30% will be 30% will be renewable energy, and Shersha, Hassan Saab, zara band kar dein phone. 30% of that share will be renewable energy by 2030. It is possible. But in the IG-SAP, if you look at it, which is made by the NTDC, and we had friends from NTDC, that aspiration of 30% renewable energy by 2030 is not reflected in the IG-SAP like it should. That synchronization and then incentivizing renewable energy investments, because renewable energy can be expanded in Pakistan if it is made profitable. If people who are energy investors, like Energy China, if they are given an incentive that you will get this tariff, and it will be, within this profit period, like it was in the first phase of CPEC, that this % guaranteed rate of return. And if we also have work towards a smarter grid system, which is directly linked with the renewable energy, you have to have the grid capability to actually have renewable energy investments, a modern grid, an upgraded grid. What we see right now is that we have a lot of advocacy towards renewable energy. But if you talk about the tariffs, Zubairi Saab is here, and our Honorable Prime Minister, who successfully executed the Bahawalpur SEZ, Quaid-e-Azam Solar Power Park with Zonergy. Now is also talking about big solar projects. But when you talk about tariffs, when you talk about the pennies and cents, I feel that that's not followed through. And because we have NEPRA and they are autonomous organizations, so there has to be a synchronized approach. That said, I think one of the key conclusions of this panel was that there's still a lot of work to be done. But I, at the same time, think that there is light at the end of this tunnel that we are in. There is light. And if you look at this discussion, this was a very high quality discussion. And I was very, very impressed myself that the people, all of you here on this panel and earlier in the morning as well, what we discussed and the urgency that we have now to do this. Because when we talk about imports, our biggest import bill is of fuel. That's our biggest import bill. And that leads to, as we know, more borrowing. We borrow to import more. And that cycle continues and perpetuates. I'm grateful to the Sustainable Development Policy Institute, our partner, to the Fudan University, and my colleagues at the Pakistan-China Institute for taking this very good, timely initiative. And the purpose of this conference was having colleagues from China, colleagues from Pakistan, to make this dialogue more inclusive. And in the coming months, we plan to have more smaller dialogues, larger, and also these reports will go to the decision makers. We will bring them to the Parliament, madam. We will bring them to the Minister of Energy, to the Prime Minister of both sides of the spectrum, China and Pakistan. And we are in dialogue with the National Development Reform Commission and sharing our findings with them as well. And we look forward to not only talking the talk, but walking the talk and translating this into serious tangibles for Pakistan. So very grateful to all of you for taking the time and participating, and looking forward to keeping in touch and engaging with all of you in the future. Thank you very much. We can have one final group photo, I think, with everyone who's here. And then we can... No, you must come there. NPPI, good.